It's time for the Daily Standup Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. It's Friday and it's time for our Agile, Not So Agile episode of the Daily Standup Podcast. Now, today is a special episode. Today is episode number 850. And I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate it than by inviting my dear friend Bob Hartman onto the episode. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's got lots of action-packed information in there, and it even has an exciting announcement. So stay tuned for more. It's time for another incredible edition of the Daily Stand-Up. Now, this one's different because I have a very special guest here with me. One of my friends here, he's a certified Scrum trainer. He has been around in the industry for just as long as I have, and I will tell you, we are peas in a pod. I know so many conferences where we've had the opportunity to speak together, and we've kind of jogged for the number one, number two position and just kind of bounced around. This is my dear friend Bob Hartman. Bob, how are you?
I'm awesome, Lee. It's been great to see you this week. It's been a while since we've been in person, so this is cool.
I'll tell you what. Agile 2023, there were a lot of people concerned about the venue and about where it was being held. But what I can tell you is the one thing that I've observed so far is that it's really pulling people together.
Yeah.
And it's just been so exciting because it's unfortunate that many people had negative karma about the location or whatnot. But what I can tell you is I want to let everyone out there know I have been to probably 20 conferences recently. This by far has been the most organized, most well-run, best conference I've been to. So if you're considering going another year, if you're not here, don't be discouraged. Just come, you'll enjoy it, you'll get the most that you can out of it.
Well, as an Agile Alliance board member this year for the start of my 3-year term, I appreciate that because this was a big concern for us was, will people show up? Will they feel safe? And I agree with you. People are eating it up, and it's been pretty good so far.
It's been amazing. I'll tell you, it's been better. Let's put it this way. Out of all the conferences that I've been to, what I'm going to say is the quality of the guests, the quality of the speakers, I'm seeing it step up a level. And this is interesting because for a long time, what I've been talking about in the Agile community is that there's going to be this graduation, if you will, where the people who have Scrum Alliance IDs under 100, the two of us, and that's true. So I'll never forget it. Someone freaked out when I pulled up my Scrum Alliance profile, and they saw 0000000000091.
Yeah.
They were like, what? I'm like,
crazy.
It's just when you've been around a community so long. One of the things I said is it's going to be like the passing of the baton. And for a little while, I have to admit, I was a little bit concerned, but now I think I'm starting to see some faces and some people who really are going to take things forward, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's been great this week to see some people who I know their journey has been years in the making, and you and I both have been in a position where we have to say no to somebody,
right?
And then to see them keep grinding that and get there. I told one today, I said, I'm so proud that you are where you are because you know the value of what you've got, and it's going to be something that you'll cherish, just like you and I have cherished it over the last 15 years.
I'll tell you, it has been just such a whirlwind seeing the transition and a change in people. But at the same time, I love what you said, how seeing people and telling them no, but not, and I love this about you. You're not always the king of no, but you're the king of help me understand. So this is great, but help me understand how we can make it better. This is on the right track, but help me understand what we can do moving forward to make it even better than what it is now.
Yep.
And I think that is something that is really missing from the Agile community. So one of the promises that I do on this podcast is I always position it with 3 questions.
Okay.
And we try to keep it close to 15 minutes. We're going to go a little bit over, but it's okay.
Okay.
So question number 1. If you have observed something in the Agile community, something regarding Agile overall, that you have seen that has been a change, a transition, something that has transitioned that has yielded positive results, what's one thing that you've seen as an opportunity for growth in the Agile community that's changed, and what impact did it give?
Well, I think the thing that's amazing to me is, we have all these scaling frameworks, and you and I may have the same opinion about all of them in general, which is, but people are taking those concepts and applying them in different ways, in ways that are kind of interesting. Like, I don't know about you, but when I hear the phrase quarterly planning, it's like, ooh, red flags.
Yeah.
But one of my clients has taken quarterly planning and taken some of the safe elements of that and made it be, let's do 6 2-week sprints and 1 week of celebration, planning, retrospection, and that's their quarterly cadence. And it's like, works really, really well for them in their industry. And I'm starting to see more companies just say, I don't need all of this framework. We have enough people that are smart enough to pick the right parts for us.
Yeah.
And I don't think 5 years ago that was the case.
I agree. And what I can tell you is not just limited to scaling. So one of the things that I paid close attention to was when PMI did the whole disciplined agile delivery thing, not necessarily against it, but at the same time, I felt like it was just this giant toolkit that got thrown out there, and it's supposed to be choose your own adventure. But the problem is people didn't know which pieces fit together, so you were getting a lot of confusion.
Right.
Where what you're explaining is actually astronomical, and it's something that I've seen as well through coaching and training, that organizations are leaning away from traditional quarterly planning, but they are doing more of the safe PI program increments, where they're doing the 6 sprints and then they have the follow-up sprint. And during that sprint, they really are celebrating, focusing on new initiatives, and it's working. I'm seeing success there, which is good. And that is a very positive change, and something that I've seen, even as recently as last week with some of the companies I've been working with. So that's cool. All right. So I love that answer. Question number 2. If there's something that you feel like is holding the Agile community back, because I know I got one of the best Agilists here, what would you say is one thing that if you had and I call this the thrift store genie lamp question. So let me explain what I mean by that. Most genie lamps have 3 wishes. This one, it's from the thrift store. It's only got 1 wish.
Okay.
So you got 1 wish left. You could change one thing in the Agile community to help it be better. If you could take one thing and say, this is the thorn in my side, this is the thing that's been causing the most grief, what would you take off of the table so that people could be more successful? What's the one thing that you just see that you're just like, oh, this is still happening, or this is happening new, it's driving me crazy?
So I'm going to go back to a conversation you and I had a few years ago. And it goes back to, I see people so focused on Agile practices that they forget about their Agile mindset.
Yes.
And it's like, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And they do it blindly without knowing what it's about. Yeah. And that frustrates the heck out of me, because you and I are both the same way. In our classes, it's like, let's understand what these values and principles mean before we even think about a practice.
That's right.
And to me, that would be the one thing I would take off the table. Is I would say, you can't be Agile until you understand the values and principles, because then the practices will come to you. You don't need to start with practices, because you can't back into those values and principles. You just can't go backwards. Yeah. And I have classes just like you all the time. First thing people say when they're done is, wow, I had no idea it was about values and principles. I'm like, well, it's about people. Why would it be about TDD? I mean, TDD is wonderful and all these things are great, but if you don't understand why you're doing them, they lose their value, I think.
Yeah, and I'm 100% there. In fact, one of the analogies I gave in a recent class was, even if you're not a fan of racing, you get this one. But I use a racing analogy where I talk about a pit crew and I talk about a garage. And anybody who's ever seen a race before, if a car is needing an update, it'll drive into the pit and it can get tires, windshield, fuel. It can get some basic necessities and it can be on its way. And it happens in split-second fashion, right? But there's a garage that has all the tools in it. And the hope is that there's someone on the team who's a chief mechanic who understands how all these tools work and when they're applicable and what they can do. But it doesn't mean that you use every tool every time you pull into the pit.
Right.
And I think that sometimes people know that the tool exists and they say, let's try the tool because we have it. And I'm like, that makes no sense at all, right? If you don't understand the foundation behind it. And I think you're right when you said you're spot on. It has to do with some of the foundational pieces. And I think this is the part of my class. So we're talking about classes. This is the part of my class that blows people's mind. When I get to the summary of where I pulled all the information from, and that slide says, Mike Cohn, Jeff Sutherland, Ken Schwaber. That's it.
Yep.
And it's just those 3 people. And the rest is information that I built on top to support the words of those people. And people are like, well, every other class I've been to, they have 100 different places they pull things from. And I'm like, if what was done in the beginning was working, what happened over time is that people tried to add something to it or take something away from it. And they created their own thing and they put a spin on it. And it's turned into the pit crew having 10,000 things that they can do and not being good at any of them.
Yeah.
Instead of just focusing on the things that they need to be good at, the fundamental pieces, so that they can build around that fundamental team. So
my favorite part of that is when we talk about the tools that people use to track their Agile implementation. I'm like, If you can make the Kanban view be, I'm going to put up a card and look at it on a wall and move it, great, use that.
That's it, use that.
But it does this, and it does this, and it does this. I'm like, who cares?
I don't care.
That's useless.
Exactly. In fact, I've even gone as far as to tell some teams to stay away from some of the real complex tools.
Yep.
And it's not that I don't love the tool vendors. I love you guys.
Yeah.
It's just what I'm saying is if you have something that's simple and clean and lean that you can just show progress and identify if there's disruption in workflow. So cumulative flow diagram, something that shows disruption, then you know where things are getting stuck or where things are getting held up and you know what's going on. So I always tell people lean flow is better. So
so there's tool vendors here at the conference, obviously.
Right, sure.
And I tell them all, I say, your tools are awesome, but as long as you have a simple view that people can then grow what they need into versus start with the complex view and make our process fit that, because that's what I see a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. And that's just recipe for disaster.
I just want to take a moment and go back to the day one keynote. One of the things that she did was incredible. She used the Agile Manifesto as a foundation for the rest of her presentation.
Yep.
And in the end, during the Q&A, she says, while she didn't proclaim to be an expert Agilist, she still used those principles from the fundamental, from the foundation to support what she was doing. And I just thought that was a nice twist on being a quality coach, I believe is what the name.
She's a quality coach. Yeah.
So that was super cool, right?
Yeah.
All right, so now I got to give you question number 3. And I always ask, question number 3 is always the same. So question number 3 is more or less the uplifting question. So here it is. So if there are people out there who are in the Agile trenches or they're just learning about Agile, there's still some people who are just learning about it. Mm-hmm. Or they're people who just are frustrated with the way their company's doing things. And I'm going to go here for a minute because this seems to be a hot thing right now, unfortunately. People have been laid off from an opportunity and they're looking for new work. Yep. If we could give them one piece of advice, if we could give them one thing to help them either be more successful in their search or be more successful in their next Agile implementation, what would be the one piece of advice that you could leave them with that would help them progress, that would help them take whatever they know to the next level, no matter where they are in their journey? Just what's the one piece of advice we could give that would help them?
So I'm going to have to break my answer to this into 2 pieces. One is for people who are employed and one is for people who are unemployed. So let's start with the employed people.
Okay.
I think I liked the keynote today when she said it's about people. And I think when you're in an Agile organization, let's say you're an Agile coach or even just on an Agile team, I think on focusing on bringing joy to people and joy to yourself will help you and others be more successful, because we both know there's a direct link between morale and productivity. I mean, those lines would overlap. And I don't think we pay enough attention to morale. I use a study in my classes where they did a study on morale, and they found that it was people with high morale organizations were 18% more productive, 16% more profitable, 12% higher customer satisfaction, and 60% higher quality.
60?
60, yeah. And I asked the author what they attributed that to, and here's the quote. I said, Bob, it appears people do better work when they give a damn.
Wow.
Duh. So I
can argue with that.
Yeah, so I would focus on helping people care and helping them have joy. So that's if you're in a company. If you're not in a company and you've been laid off or you're otherwise unemployed, looking for their next opportunity, I would say networking with Agile groups around the country, because we're here in Florida. There's the South Florida Agile Association. Denver has Agile Denver. Austin has Agile Austin. Utah had the Salt Lake City, Utah area. They're all over the place. And the connections you can make there are tremendous, even just getting on their mailing list.
Absolutely.
And then I know it's a big expense, but going to conferences like this and not necessarily only for the networking elements, but for increasing your knowledge during your downtime. Read, watch videos. This is episode 850?
850.
You got 849 other ones to look at and learn stuff from. So tons of stuff out there. I did an Agile Daily Dose video every day, for a couple-minute video every day for a year. There's tons of information that you can learn and skill up. And that's what I would do during my downtime for sure.
100%. I love that answer, 100%. And for me, the only other thing that I would tell people who are in a search, and this is me stretching out a little bit, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of people who want to come to a certification class, and maybe they are looking to get a scholarship or a partial scholarship so that they can afford to come. I have some people who say they want to make payments or whatever the case may be. And it's not that I'm looking to fill more people in my class. It's just that there's someone who really needs this, and it's going to make a difference in them in their job search to get their next opportunity. I want to make sure, and I'm sure you support that as well, that we want to make sure they get what they need so that they can have that tool in their toolkit. Because my belief is that if we focus on the pit crew, and I'm going there, and we focus on the essential tools and essential things that people need, whether you're in a job or whether you're looking for a job, if you focus on those fundamental pieces and believe in yourself and do the things you need to do to be a continual learner, not continuous because you can't do it all the time,
right?
But a continual learner where you're focused and then you take a breather, take a step back, recover, and learn some more. I think that those are the learners who retain more, but I love that statistic. You're gonna have to throw me that study so that I can use that statistic later.
No problem.
That's incredible. But I just more than anything want to say thank you. So I'm
gonna challenge you here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're talking about the unemployed people. Let's do something about it.
Okay.
So pick a number, 10 unemployed people in our classes in the next 5 months before the end of the year.
Tell you what, I can easily do that. Yeah. So we have a couple of things that we do at AgileDad. So, and I'm going to throw one thing out to you too that we do for military. So people know this. In November, we always do a military class where we have one CSM and one CSPO for 25 people who are transitioning out of the military.
Awesome.
And we do it 100% free. So we get sponsors to step up and do that.
Okay.
So if you want to help out with that, we'd love to have a co-brand opportunity to help with that. But in addition, yes, I think 10 minimum. I mean, I'm even willing to put together a class of 20 and, just let it happen. If people need the opportunity, I want to make sure that we can provide it. So I accept that challenge wholeheartedly.
Okay.
And I think that with the two of us working together, that we can figure out how to get it aligned. And the thing about those type of classes, one thing that I do throw out there, we can do them online, that's fine. But those are the types of classes I usually love to do in person.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to, let's take a look at your resume for 10 minutes. Let's talk to each other like you're in an interview and talk about what your skills are. Let's put together a quick elevator pitch. So I think that you can do some very specific things in those classes where we have unemployed folks that if it's in person, it would be a lot better.
Yeah, that would be cool. It's hard to reach a lot of the community because they can't travel, so you have to find a place, like Silicon Valley or some other places where they're having some places.
And there are hubs. I mean, I know here, we've done them in Salt Lake City before. We've done them here in Orlando, in the greater Orlando area. I've done some classes in Charlotte that are specific like this to people who have needs. And what I can tell you is it's worked out really well. So, and that's the thing I love about Bob. And he kind of let a cat out of the bag. I was saving it till the end, but he told you. So this is a very special episode. This is episode number 850. And I made a promise that, and I'll explain why in a minute, but there were 2 episodes that I wanted to make sure I had a very special guest on. One was 850 and one was 1000. And here's why. Because for me, most people don't know this, but I came from a very hard upbringing. And for me, 850 made a significant difference because I remember the first time that I was able to get my own apartment and the rent was $850.
Wow.
And I remember this like it was yesterday. And I said that whoever was with me, I wanted to make sure it was someone that I felt a close connection to, a close relationship with. Because for me, I remember the first time that I was able to break free from some of the chains that were holding me back. And I think that that's a lot about what this Daily Stand-Up Podcast is about. It's about helping people who need a quick dose of something. It's about helping people in need. So if you're out there and you have a need, feel free to reach out. Bob will give you his information here in a minute. You know how to get in touch with me. I would love to have that happen. But I couldn't think of anyone more special to share this episode with. It has been just an incredible,
unbelievable, man.
incredible run. And it's just, I have had lots of people who I call acquaintances and some friends, but there are just a few that I would consider some of my best friends in the world. And you have just been an incredible human being for the whole time I've known you. And that, I think, is the hardest challenge. So my challenge to you, so he gave me a challenge, I'm giving you a challenge. My challenge to you is to find a way to be your best self, find a way to be an incredible human being, find a way to give back. And even if you're in one of those situations where you're underemployed or unemployed, it doesn't need to cost anything to smile someone. It doesn't need to cost anything to open a door for someone. It doesn't need to cost anything to be on time for an appointment, right?
Yeah.
It's just, there are little things that you can do to strengthen yourself and to be your best self. And if you believe in yourself, anything is possible. I'm going to throw it back to Bob because I want him to give, if somebody out there wants to reach out to you and they want to know more about what you're doing. So I guess you can tell everybody what you're doing, what's going on, what type of classes you got going on, what's happening, so that people know how to find you and how to get your information. And we'll also post this in the details underneath the podcast.
So I'm Bob Hartman, and I was the founder of Agile for All back in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And Agile for All started with just me, and I thought it would only be just me for the longest time. And then the world changed, and we had lots of people, and now we don't have as many people. But bob.hartman at agileforall.com gets to me. Yeah. I'm also on the Agile Alliance Board of Directors, where you can reach me there. And so I guess the two things I want to mention are, Agile for All obviously is a business very much like Lee's, where we're trying to help people become more agile. But I'm also interested in just helping people understand Agile better and help the Agile Alliance be better. So if you have suggestions for the Agile Alliance, if you're at this conference and you have suggestions, feel free to let me know, because 30 seconds more.
No, you're good.
Last year, the Agile Alliance put out a call for people who wanted to be on the board. And one of the statements they said was, we're looking for people who can ask hard and interesting questions. I thought, I'm old enough. I don't care what people think of me. I can ask hard and interesting questions. So the first question I asked was, why aren't there 1 million members of the Agile Alliance?
That's a good question.
And nobody's given me a good answer yet. So that's my driving focus for my 3-year term, is why can't we drive membership? And the number one answer is, obviously, we don't have a compelling value proposition. So this year is devoted to saying, what is that value proposition that says, I'm in the Agile space, I want to join the Agile Alliance because they have something for me. So I would love to get feedback on what that would be.
I love that. And I think you will get feedback. So make sure you reach out to him, bob.hartman at agileforall.com. He will answer those questions there. And it's Agile 4 spelled out. Make sure they know.
Yep, Agile for All with FOR in the middle.
Just making sure, because I could see people doing Agile 4.
I think that one might go to me still. I'm not sure.
Well, we want to make sure you get it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'll just close with one thought about the Agile conference. And this is a sincere thought. Bob was very dedicated and sincere in what he told you. But what I can tell you is this. One of the things that I noticed about the conference, as far as a compelling thing that's changed, is that you're embracing change. One of the themes for this conference has been experimenting, which I thought was super cool, because I've been to a lot of the other gatherings and conferences, and what I've discovered is that they like to lock things in and do things a certain way. And if it doesn't fit into that groove, if it doesn't fit into the exact, if the peg doesn't fit exactly in a hole, they're not going to try anything new. And some of the things that you've done here have just been really inspirational to see that there's a future for Agile Alliance, and I think you can get to 1 million members. I think it can happen.
I think so too. And one of the biggest experiments, and it's going to be interesting to see the feedback from Scotland, but the Scotland hub being linked to the United States is pretty interesting. And
that was cool. And I love that they gave an alternate venue. It was a little late for people who didn't know, but I love that they gave an alternate venue for people who maybe didn't want to make the trip to Florida so that they could have a place to go. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, Bob. I can't thank you enough for this. And just keep on keeping on, man, because I'm going to have you back for 1,000. I'll tell you that right now.
I will do that. I will do it.
All right. And for all of you out there, you know the terms. Stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care. Be awesome.